Hi guys, it's Arielle. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I hope you're all doing well. Today we're continuing the hunt for our dream apartment. I have tons of viewings to show you, so wish us luck and hopefully by the end of this video we'll have some good news to share. So today is our first visit post-rejection from the apartment in the 11th arrondissement. We are looking at an apartment in the second today. I don't know more than that because I applied to this apartment like weeks ago and I finally heard back from the agent this morning. So yeah, I don't know much, but I know that we're in the second. This apartment is located in the second arrondissement, just a 5-minute walk from Châtelet, and it's a bit too central for my liking, to be honest. I would much rather be a little bit further out, closer to the Palais Garnier, for example, where the neighborhood is much more calm. You can see that directly below, and I mean directly below the apartment, is a bar and a patio. The apartment that we're going to look at today is located on the second floor of this building. It's 41 meters squared, or 441 square feet, which is actually fairly similar to the size of our current apartment. Per month, the rent would be 1,720 euros, which does not include heating, electricity, or Wi-Fi, and this is very common for apartments in Paris, as you may have already picked up on by this point. These amenities would cost us an additional 150 euros per month, bringing the total estimated monthly cost to 1,870 euros. As soon as you walk in, this is what you see, a long hallway leading to the kitchen and the living room with the bedroom on the left. The bedroom is pretty unique. It's enclosed by these glass sliding doors, so it feels a little bit like a pod. Here's the view from the other side of the apartment, showing the kitchen and the living space. Everything was completely redone and had all new modern appliances. The apartment came with a stovetop and an oven with the possibility of installing a dishwasher and, of course, a fridge. The living space was surrounded by windows, which made the apartment feel very luminous, and the windows are actually triple paned. I've never seen that before, and this is something that the landlord had installed to help with the sound of the bar just below. To the right of the kitchen, you have a small hallway that leads to the one and only storage closet in the entire apartment, yikes, and the bathroom as well, which was again completely redone. And what I really liked about this bathroom is that it's connected to the bedroom on one side and the kitchen on the other. Something about the apartment feeling circular I quite enjoyed. One thing to note was this giant crack in the wall, which is fairly common for older buildings in Paris because with time everything sort of shifts and this can cause cracks in the building, which they're not only tracking from the inside with this yellow tape, but also from the outside. This was an easy decision for us. I think as soon as we saw that the apartment was just above the bar, Jean and I looked at each other and were like, no, this is not happening. There's just nothing worse than not getting a good night's sleep. And it doesn't matter how many panes the windows have. You could have 10 pane windows. During the summer when it's hot and you don't have AC in Paris, you need to open your windows at night to let in a cool breeze. So there would just be no way of escaping the noise from the bar directly below. And even the street, like it's a very busy, very chaotic street. And I think a secondary issue, a major issue, would be the complete lack of storage. There wasn't even a place for us to put our clothes, you know? So I think just long term, this was not gonna be the right fit for us. I did really like the pod bedroom though, I do have to say. Now, before I take you to the next visit, I do just have to say that in this video, I am of course going to show you all the viewings that we were able to schedule and attend. But what you don't see is all the daily work that we do of calling agencies one by one, trying to schedule appointments. And I say this all the time, but finding an apartment in Paris is so hard because you're going up against a lot of competition. And it's so important to put your best foot forward when you're going to these visits, to be your most confident self. And the amazing sponsor of today's video, Typology, helps me do just that. Typology is a vegan and cruelty-free skincare brand that is entirely formulated and manufactured in France. I love that their products are made with only the essentials and that you don't need to spend a lot of time or use 100 different products to build a really beautiful, lightweight look that is packed with skincare benefits. I love to start my look by combining the Typology Glow Drops with my moisturizer. This gives me a really natural, luminous finish, and these glow drops, by the way, are 98% naturally derived. I'll then use the tinted serum in the fair shade, which has vitamin C, squalane, and aloe vera. I love that it's lightweight and gives the perfect amount of coverage, and as someone that loves simplicity, a big plus for me is that you can apply with your fingertips. You don't need an entire brush set to use Typology products. I'll then add a bit of concealer in the fair shade as well, which is made with caffeine and niacinamide. And I am the biggest fan of the lip oils made with vitamin E, squalane, and jojoba oil. You can find one in every single one of my bags. I'm not kidding. I do not leave the house without it. My favorite shade by far is the ruby red. I think it's the perfect way to enhance the natural color of your lips. I really can't recommend Typology enough if you're looking for made in France skincare that you can get without traveling all the way to France. And I am the most excited to share that when you use my link below, you can receive a free shimmering dry oil with your purchase of $40 or more. This is for sure a summer staple. It gives you such a beautiful glowy satin finish, and because it's a dry oil, you don't risk staining your clothes. Thank you again to Typology for making me feel and look fabulous, and also for sponsoring today's video. Now let's get back to it. Alright, so today we're visiting a second apartment in the 8th arrondissement. We're in a very bougie neighborhood, in a very office-dense neighborhood. You don't have a lot of nightlife here, but the buildings are beautiful. This apartment is located in the 8th arrondissement between the Palais Garnier Opera House and the Monceau Park. It's a great location, very central without being too touristy, but it's a lot less dynamic and vibrant as other neighborhoods like the 10th or the 11th. The apartment that we're going to look at today is located on the first floor of this building, which is too bad because all the other floors had a balcony. There were tons of other candidates visiting at the same time as us, which always makes you a little bit anxious, but we were one of the first to arrive, so we marched straight into the very luxurious entrance of this building and took the elevator to the first floor. The apartment itself is 67 meters squared or 721 square feet, way bigger than our current place, and actually has 3 separate rooms, whereas we only have 2. Per month, the rent would be 1,800 euros, keeping in mind that as per usual, we'd have to add an extra 150 for amenities. As soon as you walk in, you have the first room on the right, and this is intended to be the bedroom, I think, given the integrated closet space. Since the apartment is on the first floor, it's pretty dimly lit, which was unfortunate, but there was a pretty big window facing the courtyard, which is really great because it's much less noisy than facing the street. Moving along, across from the bedroom you have the bathroom, which was newly renovated and had the space to install a washing machine. And next to the bathroom you have the separate toilet. Once you pass through this main entrance space, you get to the living room and the kitchen area, which wasn't ideal if I'm being honest. The living room certainly was large, but the kitchen was very poorly finished and lacked all appliances like a stovetop, an oven, a dishwasher, and these are all things that we'd have to buy and then pay to have installed. And at the far end of the apartment past the living room was the second room, which would serve as an office space or a second bedroom. It was the same size as the main bedroom, just no storage space, and again, it was facing the courtyard. Okay, so quick thoughts on this apartment. First of all, this was the first visit we had where there was a lineup. I would say there were at least 10 other people visiting at the same time as us, and there were still more visits to come. When it comes to the neighborhood, I like the fact that it's safe and the fact that it's calm. You're very close to the Champs-Élysées, which isn't very useful for either one of us. It's borderline a little bit too central for what I would personally like. And then the biggest downside to this apartment obviously was the lack of light. In this building, you had apartments like on the 5th floor with the balcony, similar to what we saw in the 11th in my last video, and that would have been perfect. But even though this one was huge, I really felt like there wasn't enough light. It felt a little bit depressing, and the kitchen also sucked. There were almost no amenities. You'd have to buy a lot of appliances and install them yourself. So those are my quick thoughts. What do you think?
I think it's exactly the same thing as you.
Yeah.
There is no light, and it's a calm apartment because you are on the courtyard.
You're facing the courtyard.
Yeah, so there is no noise.
Yeah.
So it's really calm, and
you say that as the cars are honking.
But I think it's really huge. I think 60 57 meters square.
Yeah, this one was
and,
huge.
And it's only...
And there were 2 rooms as well.
Yeah, it's only 1,800, I think, euros.
I almost thought it was a scam when Josh sent it to me, because for the 8th arrondissement,
For the size.
for this price and size, it's like very cheap, which I'm assuming is why there were so many people lined up. But yeah, do you see yourself living in the 8th? No? Me neither. Me neither. Okay, on to the next.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm on our way to our 3rd visit. This one's in the 7th arrondissement, and I'm doing it without Jean because it's in the afternoon, so he's at work. I am kind of excited because I think the 7th is a really nice mix of residential, parks, and tourism, because this apartment in particular is actually just steps away from the Champ de Mars and the Eiffel Tower. Even just walking to the apartment, you can see the Eiffel Tower, so that's pretty magical. It's very calm, it's very pretty, it's a very safe neighborhood. It's definitely already giving me a good first impression.
So today we are in the 7th arrondissement, and more precisely just 3 streets over from the Champ de Mars and the Eiffel Tower. It is a beautiful, beautiful neighborhood filled with restaurants and shops that are a little bit more my speed than what we saw in the 8th. The apartment itself is on the smaller side at 41 meters squared, or 445 square feet. Same as our current apartment, it has 2 separate rooms, and the total rent would be around 1,400 euros a month, which is pretty affordable for this neighborhood. The apartment itself is on the 2nd floor of this building. I arrived 10 minutes early for the appointment, so I skipped the line of other candidates that I saw on my way out, and I felt a warmth as soon as I walked in. I really liked the off-white walls and the pink bathroom. There wasn't much storage space or counter space in the bathroom, but there was the possibility of installing our washing machine right by the bathtub. Past the hallway entrance, you have the bedroom, which was a really decent size, and it was luminous enough despite the view being a brick wall. There was electric heating in the corner, which would probably cost us a small fortune in the winter. My past experiences with these have not been great, with my heating bills being as high as 175 euros during the colder months. A big plus though was the built-in closet that was really spacious. Right now in our current apartment, my desk is set up in our bedroom, and I thought that I could have a similar setup here next to the window. Across the bedroom you have the toilet, and further down you have the living room. The flooring was a little bit sketchy looking, I won't lie, but I did love the old fireplace and mantle that the landlord had left. And finally, a quick spin in the kitchen, which was fully equipped except for a dishwasher.
Alright, so first impressions post-visit. You know, the apartment didn't really stand out. There wasn't a lot of great lighting. It was on the 2nd floor. You guys already know how I feel about that. But this is almost a case where I would forego all the cons of this apartment just because I really love the neighborhood, and I can't tell if it's because it's a really blue, sunny day that I like this apartment a little bit extra. Not the apartment, the neighborhood. But yeah, we'll have to see what Jean thinks. I'm gonna show him the clips tonight, and maybe we'll submit a dossier.
Okay, handsome boy, what did you think of the apartment I just showed you?
I'm not sure it's a coup de cœur for me. I didn't like the salle de bain, the bathroom, thank you, and also the layout. This layout makes the apartment really small, and every room are small, and I don't like this.
And what did you think of the arrondissement?
Oh, for me this arrondissement is too much touristy.
Even if there's a big park?
Which park?
The Champ de Mars!
It's too small for running. I'm sorry.
Good afternoon. Today we're not visiting one, but two apartments in Boulogne, which is an area just outside of Paris. It's so close, it could basically be Paris. And there are three reasons why I want to show you guys apartments in this area. Number one is that they are way cheaper than the city center of Paris. As you guys know, I see all the comments. And so it means that for our budget, we'll be able to find something a little bit bigger than we would in Paris. Number two is there is way less demand for apartments outside of the city center. And so it means there's less competition, which is good for our dossier. And also it means it's way easier to get a visit, to get a viewing. For both of the viewings that we have today, I actually saw these listings this morning. I called the agencies right away and I was able to organize a viewing within 2-3 hours. And the third reason why I want to start looking at apartments in Boulogne specifically is because I actually used to live here before I moved into Paris. And I remember the biggest difference between the two areas, Boulogne and Paris, was the quality of air. In Boulogne, you have the Bois de Boulogne, which is a huge forest. My apartment used to be just beside this forest. And as soon as I moved down into Paris, the breathing was so different. It was so much harder to breathe. And so it sounds silly, but I think if we find the apartment of our dreams in an area that's close to the forest where we can breathe better than in Paris, why not? So yeah, those are the reasons why I want to start looking here. And I thought it'd be interesting to show you guys a different part of Paris or a different area around Paris that could be more attractive to people who are like me and have an international profile because there's less demand. If you're struggling to find viewings, if you're struggling to have your dossier accepted, then this could be the option for you. So yeah, all that to say, I'm very hopeful. I'm very much looking forward to these visits. I think we'll be seeing apartments that are not only bigger, but more luminous with neighborhoods that are a lot more calm. So who knows, maybe one of these will be the one.
Here we are in Boulogne. Now, this is not my ideal part of Boulogne. I would prefer to be closer to the forest. This apartment was unfortunately located right next to a massive street that leads onto the highway and a few busy, loud roundabouts, so I'm not so sure that we're getting the higher air quality that I was looking for. That said, the apartment is located on a quieter side street and on the 5th floor of this building, so we'd probably escape a lot of the noise coming from the street. You can see it all the way up top here. It's actually on the very last floor of the building. The apartment itself is 48 meters squared or 517 square feet. Same as our current apartment, it has 2 separate rooms and the total rent would be around 1,630 euros a month. As soon as you walk in, there was a beautiful courtyard and the building attendant's office. This was actually the first apartment that we viewed that had a building attendant, and this can be really practical, especially when you're receiving mail or packages. It also makes you feel a little bit more safe. Once you walk into the apartment, you have a very long hallway that leads to the first room, and this one was 10 out of 10. It was very spacious and luminous. It's south facing, so we'd have sun all day, every day, and because we're on the top floor, there isn't a single building blocking the view or the light. It's just too bad that there wasn't a balcony. Right next to the living room, you have the bedroom, which was north facing, and also courtyard facing. I really love this because it means that the bedroom would be cooler and darker during the summer months, and we'd probably get better sleep. There was a huge built-in closet, which was perfect, although the room was a little bit on the smaller side, so I think my desk would probably end up in the living room, which is kind of a bummer. Back down the hall, you have the bathroom, which was beautifully redone and had the space for a washing machine. However, the sink was super problematic. It was very small and just under the mirror and cabinet. These types of sinks are a recipe for water splashing all over the place when you're washing your face. The toilet was of course separate, as was the kitchen, which was a first for us. It was completely closed off from the rest of the apartment and was quite a bit smaller than what we're used to. For example, the stovetop only had 2 burners as opposed to 4 like we have in our apartment. There was very little counter space and there wasn't a stove, which makes me so sad because I love cooking and I probably use our stove on a daily basis. We would also have to buy and install our own dishwasher. The back end of the kitchen did have enough space for pantry storage and a small kitchen table.
Okay, so we just left the visit. What did you think?
You want to start? Maybe?
Okay, so I liked that the apartment was both south facing and north facing. It was very luminous. It was definitely very sunny, and because it was on the 5th floor, you didn't have any other buildings that were blocking the view. And I also really liked that the kitchen was separate. It had its own room with a closed door, which means you could prepare food, you could eat your food away from like the living room. I think we're so used to having apartments where our kitchen space is in the same area as our social space, as our relaxing space, that it would feel good to finally have a kitchen that's separate. The one thing that stood out to me that I didn't really like is when I was talking about Boulogne, I said what really pulled me to this area is the fact that you have the Bois de Boulogne, the big forest, the clean air. And so that's what I'm looking for in an apartment in Boulogne, is proximity to the forest. And this apartment wasn't as close as I'd like it to be. It was on this main road with lots of traffic, lots of cars, lots of noise. And the apartment itself isn't noisy because to get to it, you have to go through a whole courtyard and stuff. It's not the noise that bothers me. It's just, if I'm gonna move to Boulogne, it's to have that relaxed pace, the greenery that you'd have close to the forest. So yeah, I'm not really sold on the exact location of this one. But yeah, what about you?
It's the total opposite of you, because I do not like closed kitchen. For me, it's better if you cook to have your guest or even you with who you can speak. So I think I prefer an open kitchen. And the second thing I don't like is that the two rooms, for me, they are too small. Maybe for a bedroom it's nice, perfect, but the living room for me it's too small.
That's a good point actually, because the apartment is an open concept like the apartment that we actually live in today. You have this hallway, you have this small bedroom, you have one room to the right, which is sort of your living room, but it was very small and it was closed off. You're right, it feels less welcoming.
I think the hallway, the couloir, it's so much space, lost space.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I know.
The hallway was so long. That is so true.
Yeah. No,
It was probably 10 meters squared, this hallway alone,
Yeah.
and you literally can't do anything with the space in a hallway. That is so good
Yeah, I
point.
know. Yeah.
This is
No, you're welcome.
this is why I bring you along.
Yeah. Oh, pardon.
Okay, voilà. We have one more visit
Yeah.
in 10 minutes. Hopefully we like this one better.
It's in 10 minutes.
Here we are en route to our next visit in Boulogne, and this one was unfortunately even closer to the famous highway that I was talking about. That said, the apartment building was down this side street with beautiful wisteria and a very cute cafe. Located on the first floor of this building, we were feeling a little bit nervous because there didn't appear to be a lot of windows, and since this apartment was on the ground floor, we wanted as much light as we could get. 48 meters squared, or 517 square feet, we were pretty pleased with the size of this apartment, and there were 2 rooms as well as a mini terrace. The rent would be 1,550 euros a month, which is definitely within our budget. The first thing you see when you walk in is a kitchen, and the landlord did a really good job with this. It was completely equipped with modern appliances. We had absolutely everything we needed, no need to buy or pay to have anything installed. From the window, you also have a first little peek at the apartment's terrace. Off of the kitchen, you have a ton of built-in storage, which was perfect, truly the best storage in any apartment that we've seen so far, and this area was spacious enough for me to have my desk in the corner like the previous tenant. From the living room, you have access to the terrace, which was much more luminous than you would expect since there wasn't anything above blocking the sun. And next to the living room is the bedroom, which doesn't come furnished. The previous tenant was still in the process of moving out, and I thought it was very cute, a great size, given that I wouldn't have to put my desk in this room. Similar to our apartment, the bathroom was connected to the bedroom, and there wasn't exactly a wow factor, but we did prefer to have the shower as opposed to a bathtub, and there was a washing machine already installed in the closet. This one was a no, even though we loved the kitchen. I could totally see myself spending hours in there. The fact that the apartment was on the ground floor made us feel a little bit claustrophobic. It was almost cave-like. So this one was a no, and it was no pretty fast. On to the next one, I guess. I hope one day I can stop saying that.
All right, so we're on our way to our next visit, which is in the 8th arrondissement. And I can't really show you guys much around the neighborhood because if we lived here, we would basically be neighbors with the Palais de l'Élysée, which is the French version of the White House. It's where the president lives. And there's tons of foreign embassies in this area as well. So it's a very central neighborhood. It's a very safe neighborhood, very aesthetic with all the Haussmannian buildings. I think it'd be a great place to live. We just have to see if the apartment itself is up to par.
I was honestly so in love with this neighborhood. It was such a joy to walk around. It was a breath of fresh air and such a perk to be located steps away from the Champs-Élysées gardens. You also had a number of embassies in this area, and you can actually see some of the flags hanging from the buildings. When we arrived, there were already 4 other groups waiting and more were on the way, so the turnout was really significant. The apartment is located on the 5th floor of this building and is 40 meters squared or 431 square feet. The rent is 1,200 euros per month, which is shockingly low. I guess that's why so many people were interested. As soon as you walk through the big wooden doors, you enter the courtyard, which is always really nice because it means that you're isolated from the noise of the street. Here you can actually see the apartment all the way up on the top floor. We hiked up 5 flights of stairs since there wasn't an elevator, and en route to the actual apartment, we discovered that there were not only communal washing machines, but also communal bathrooms, which I guess is fairly typical in student apartments that are really, really tiny. They weren't very well maintained and made me wonder how many people use them, how often they're cleaned, and how busy and noisy it gets during the day. Now, when it comes to the apartment itself, as soon as you walk in, you're faced with the living room on the left, the kitchen closet in the middle, more on that later, and the bedroom to the right. It was pretty somber due to the small windows, which was too bad since we were on the top floor. Had the windows been a little bit bigger, so much more daylight would have shone through. Not to mention, we would have had a really spectacular view of these beautiful rooftops. There was a type of built-in storage unit with shelves and hangers, which I thought was fantastic. The only thing that was kind of strange in this room is that it was the only place in the entire apartment where you could install a washing machine. You can see the pipes over here on the left corner. The kitchen was a catastrophe. You don't even need words to describe this picture. Cooking for 2 in only 1 meter squared was just really the furthest thing from ideal. Our spirits were lifted when we saw the living room, which was just across from the bedroom. The windows weren't anything to write home about, but the view of the courtyard below was dreamy. I could absolutely see myself sitting in the couch here for hours and reading. The bathroom and the toilet were also connected to this room. I'm not gonna lie, I really did like the shower. The skylights on the roof allowed for a lot of light to shine through, and the shower itself seemed pretty decent. The tiny bathroom sink, on the other hand, is another story.
All right. That was a visit.
Mm-hmm.
Positives for me are I liked that it was calm. One of the rooms had a beautiful view of the garden, the courtyard. It was very peaceful. I enjoyed that. I can't think of another pro. Do you have another pro?
No.
Okay.
The only pro that I have,
Yeah.
it's, as you say, it's calm. And I think the neighborhood is safe. That's the only thing positive about this one.
Honestly, the visit was okay up until I saw the kitchen. The closet, I should say.
Yeah, there is no kitchen.
It was not a place that I would enjoy cooking. Immediate no for me. Jean was also saying that the floor, it's rained a lot recently, so there were leaky areas, there were floorboards coming loose. This apartment, I think, was very much for a student profile. You, of course, had the apartment, which is private, but what you see very often in apartment buildings for students is that you'll have your apartment and then elsewhere on the floor you'll have a public bathroom, a public kitchen, a public laundry room, which is what this building had. So I don't think we were exactly the profile for this apartment.
No.
Any other thoughts before my arm falls off because the phone is heavy?
No, I think I totally agree with you. It's made for students, even with this price. I think it's...
Yeah, the price was really good. It's 1,200, which for the arrondissement and for the meters squared was great. There wasn't an elevator. I couldn't see myself lugging groceries up 5 flights of stairs every single day.
No, I think it's no, it's a no.
It's a no. So no dossier sent in, and we still have tons of problems with our apartment. Where does that leave us? It leaves us heading straight back to the drawing board. You guys know how much I love that apartment in the 11th. It really was my dream apartment, and it was devastating when our dossier wasn't selected. But the thing is, now that I know that that type of apartment is accessible to us in Paris, I don't want to settle for anything less, and I don't feel like we have to, because now that we're out of the cold winter season, it's okay that we don't have heating. It still will be a problem in the future, I think, because they haven't even started any type of construction on repairing the heating system in the building, so I'm in no way confident that it'll be fixed by next winter, but we do have a significant amount of time before then, and so I don't want to rush this process for us to have us move somewhere that isn't going to be a long-term rental for us. So that's kind of how I'm feeling about the situation. We have done 11 visits, which is quite a lot, and I hope that our dream apartment is right around the corner. We are going to continue looking, maybe just at a slower pace. I guess that's good news because you guys will have another apartment hunting video in the future. But yeah, for now, we are sticking it out in this apartment, and yeah. You will be the first to know if that ever changes. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed coming around Paris to see all these apartments with us. I hope this video was helpful. You can let me know if you have any questions down below. A huge thank you to Typology for sponsoring today's video. Make sure you guys check them out with the links in the pinned comment and the description down below. And I will see you in the next video.